Have you been forgiven a little or a lot? And if you and I view our forgiveness as a little thing, then we're going to love little. We're going to show the tendencies that Jonah showed here. But when we can see our forgiveness for what it is, it's a big deal. It's a lot. We've all been forgiven a lot, and we're grateful to God for that. And we want others to experience it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Guide Through the Bible podcast. Today we're continuing our series in the book of Jonah. And in this episode, I'm here with our Bible teacher, Arlen Horst, and we're going to be looking at this prophet Jonah, who seems to have a really difficult time with who God is and what God does. So take us into Jonah chapter 4.
It's a doozy.
Yeah, what's with this guy? He's a missionary, and God actually brings salvation to this city.
Yep.
And now he's upset.
Oh, he is furious. And there's a reason many children's stories leave out Jonah chapter 4. They just don't know what to do with it. So to lead into it, I want you to think about this. I want you to think about driving down the road. You come to, a red light, and the light changes, you take off. Someone just comes by you, passes you up, goes in front of you, slows down to turn off in front of you. Or the situation where someone pulls out in front of you and then 100 feet up the road, they take a left or a right. In those moments, what do you do?
Hey, watch it. Don't you know how to drive?
Right. It gets us irritated. But then think about the time that you've done that.
Yeah, they call that the fundamental attribution error.
Because when you've done it, it was for a good reason.
Well, of course.
You're not an idiot when you do it, but we tend to think the people that do it to us are just, they're plain evil, or they don't know how to drive. They got their license out of a cereal box. But when we do that to somebody else,
that dates you a little bit if you got something out of the cereal box.
It's true. But when the roles are reversed and we're in that situation, we have good reason. It's not because we're evil. It's because we're in a hurry. We need to get here and you fill in the blank.
Or I simply goofed and messed up and didn't see.
Right.
So it's justified.
Right. And we do that with our morality too. Tendency. The human tendency is to think that we're not that bad. I mean, there's people over here or this group over here, they're evil or they're bad to the core. But us, on the other hand, we're not that bad. And we have a good reason for why we do what we do. And then that made me think a little bit about this whole question of forgiveness and how much have I been forgiven? And when I apply it to myself, if I'm not that bad, have I been forgiven a little? Or is my forgiveness a lot? And how I look at that for myself is huge. It's a big deal. And today, as we're going through Jonah chapter 4 here, I think I see in Jonah this idea that he was forgiven a little. He wasn't that bad. Maybe a little bit of conjecture there, but keep that in mind as we go through. And I want us to think about it as well, because Jesus said that if you're forgiven much, you'll love much. But if you're forgiven a little, then you love little. And so I think it is important for us to think about the forgiveness that God has given to me. Was it a little or was it a lot? What is my view of that?
And it's not that he didn't forgive you a lot. It's just that you think of it as a little.
Right.
Or you think of it, how is it? I think I'm getting it mixed up. But it's the idea that I view myself as a much better person than I actually am.
Yeah, that's what I want us to think about. Because when we get to that point, then we tend to have the holier than thou, more righteous than you, because I was never that bad.
Right.
But in reality, everyone's sins are huge. We've all been forgiven a lot. And yeah, when we have that inside, we won't have this attitude we see in Jonah chapter 4. So God was incredibly forgiving and forbearing with Jonah. And that leads me to ask the question, how much have I been forgiven? How much have you been forgiven? And that's kind of the main point of our lesson here today. I just divided it into two sections. It's the fuming, furious prophet and the forgiving, forbearing God. The prophet here at the first part, God in the forgiving, forbearing God in the second part. But before we do that, I'd like to read all of Jonah chapter 4.
Sure.
But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he became angry. So he prayed to the Lord and said, "Ah, Lord, was not this what I said when I was still in my country? Therefore I fled previously to Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious and merciful God, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, one who relents from doing harm. Therefore now, O Lord, please take my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live." Then the Lord said, "Is it right for you to be angry?" So Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city. There he made himself a shelter and sat under it in the shade, till he might see what would become of the city. And the Lord prepared a plant and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be shade for his head to deliver him from his misery. So Jonah was very grateful for the plant. But as morning dawned the next day, God prepared a worm, and it so damaged the plant that it withered. And it happened when the sun rose that God prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat on Jonah's head so that he grew faint. Then he wished death for himself and said, "It is better for me to die than to live." Then God said to Jonah, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" And he said, "It is right for me to be angry, even to death." But the Lord said, "You have had pity on the plant, for which you have not labored, nor made it grow, which came up in a night and perished in a night. And should I not pity Nineveh, that great city in which are more than 120,000 persons who cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and much livestock?" Question mark.
This sounds like Jonah's at home we say a drama queen. I guess he's a drama king. But isn't that a bit dramatic? Like, all this happened, and I am so angry to death.
Yeah, I just want to die, he says.
I guess that fits with the way Jonah is written. Everything is great and greater and bigger, and
It feels like it's a lot of
big city.
extremes.
Yeah, so
We end Jonah 3 on a high note with the city repenting. But then Jonah chapter 1, he's very angry. We're not sure why yet. We just get this feeling, and it sets the tone for the chapter because it says he's displeased exceedingly. And the one translation, the literal translation, it uses the word evil. It grieved Jonah. It was a great evil. And if you
is
think
he calling God evil?
it gives that connotation.
Okay.
Like it's saying he was so angry because of this great evil. And obviously it's God's fault that he was putting the blame on God. And so I think that gives us an idea of how strong his feelings were. Like he was upset. And then the question is, why? What's he so upset about? Well, thankfully, verse 2 explains that. And the reason he gives, I would say, is right on. The reason he gives for being angry, he describes God and says, "This is why I'm angry." And his description of God is perfect. That's right on.
But it's a quote from Exodus 34. If I'm
Correct.
right.
Right.
Do you know what the context is on that? Are you?
I think I know the story. It's when God was describing who he is to Moses.
Right. But was it not right after, like, Moses was coming down the mountain the second time with the Ten Commandments or the tablets of stone,
Okay.
after they had made a calf,
Mhm.
or made the golden calf an idol, and he had destroyed that, fixed that whole problem.
Yep.
And now he's
I'll do
coming
this.
again. I think it's the second time. I looked it up earlier, but
Okay.
there's a context there. They were really bad people who repented.
Mhm.
Israel,
Right.
in this case.
And the verse there is quoted quite often throughout Scripture.
Right.
It's very common expression: gracious, merciful, slow to anger, full of loving kindness. Like, this is who God is. And Jonah quotes that and says, "This is why I'm so mad. This is why I fled to Tarshish, because I knew you were going to do this. I knew you were going to forgive him." And that is why he is so upset. But it almost seems like he doesn't realize, like, that's why he was alive.
Yeah.
That's why he made it through the fish. That's why he was on, like, got vomited up, and, like, he didn't connect it seems like.
But his own people, it also fit them because they had done the same thing.
Yes. Many times
Yeah.
throughout the history of the Israelites.
Yeah, the point was, the saying comes from a time when they did just that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also think it's worthwhile to think about, like, his strong emotion. How could he feel this way? Or what must have he endured or went through? And so that's when I think about, like, imagine if his dad or his brother or maybe his cousins were killed by the Ninevites. That gives it a little more power. Like, if he's going there, witnessing to the city of Nineveh, and he sees soldiers, and he's like, I wonder if that guy killed my dad. I wonder if that guy killed my brother or my cousins. That's pretty serious. And that would be a lot to work through. And maybe he's just giving us his honest expression of what he was dealing with. And so when I think about that, I think about forgiveness as a whole. Because there are some people that are wronged so much, like, there is no way to get justice. There
Right.
aren't enough consequences in the world to give that person that, I don't know if you want to call it country, but to make the scales of justice balance.
Well, we've had enough of instances of mass shootings and stuff in our country that I think there'd be a couple of examples like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you do? Kill the guy 10 times to make it equal to the crime he committed.
And on top of that, he committed suicide, so you can't actually punish him anymore.
Yeah. And in those situations, like, if that's what Jonah was wrestling with, like, he wanted justice. Like, you have to serve justice in this, like, asking God, he has that. And it feels like, from our human perspective, we have every right to demand justice. Like, this got to be taken care of. And then how does forgiveness look in those difficult situations?
Hmm.
And when I think about that, I think about Corrie ten Boom and her story. Just incredible how she expresses it. And there's other examples as well, but I've read hers, which is why it stuck out to me. But it's the idea of when she was talking after World War II, and there was a guard from the camp she was in the audience. And afterward, he came up to her and talked to her and reached for her hand to shake it, and she couldn't do it. And there were, like, she describes it as this little battle going on.
Right.
She knew she must, but there's no way she could.
And she recognized him. Like,
Yeah.
she knew exactly who he was.
Right. And I'm going to read her quote that she writes afterward as she's talking about it. She says, "And so I discovered that it's not on our forgiveness any more than on our goodness that the world's healing hinges, but on His. When He tells us to love our enemies, He gives along with the command the love itself. So whether it's to love or to forgive, like, He's there to give us that and help us through it."
So it was a bit of a supernatural forgiveness and love that she experienced in order to forgive him. Is that
Yes,
right?
it was for her, and she talks about it, how when she consciously made the choice to lift her hand and shake his, then I'll read that paragraph. "His hand was thrust out to shake mine, and I who preach so often to the people in Bloomendal, the need to forgive kept my hand at my side. As I took his hand, the most incredible thing happened. From my shoulder along my arm and through my hand, a current seemed to pass from me to him, while into my heart sprang a love for this stranger that almost overwhelmed me."
Hmm.
So it is supernatural.
Right.
But I think it's worthwhile giving a little thought to Jonah and his situation before we're so hard on him. Like, imagine if this is what he was dealing with.
Well, I want to be hard on him.
Yeah, it's easy.
Isn't that how that fits with this story? Like, we want to be hard on him yet.
Right. But if I were in that situation, it would be different.
Oh yeah, sure.
And then verse 3, where he says it'd be better, he'd rather die. I imagine him thinking about going back to his people. and telling them what happened. Like, how could you do that? Yeah, I was a preacher in Nineveh, and they all repented and they're right with God now. And like, Jonah, they killed your family. What are you thinking? This is, why are you preaching repentance there? So I'm guessing that was contributing to why he was just like, I'm done, just take my life. He didn't want to go back to his people. Then where's he supposed to go? Again, I don't know for sure, but I think it's worthwhile to try to enter into what was causing such strong emotion for him. God asks him the question, do you have a right to be so angry? He doesn't give a reply. Doesn't seem like he answered. The answer is pretty obvious, I believe, because if he says yes, well, who's he angry at?
Right.
God. So instead, he goes outside the city and builds a shelter there. What's he doing? What's he doing that for? And then it says, because he wanted to see what would happen to the city. And it's almost like he's expecting that maybe their repentance wasn't good enough. Maybe they're going to back off a little bit and God will wipe them out. Maybe they didn't cross all the T's or dot all their I's, and maybe still God will follow through.
I'm just wondering how close he was to the city. If
Far
God really is going to nuke this place, like, you don't really want to be that close.
Right, but close enough to see what would happen.
Sure.
Yeah, and, was he there on the 38th day, 39th day? Like, did he stay there to the 41st and the 42nd day just to see what would happen? Like, I don't know. I don't know how that worked out.
But one of the things I missed is he actually built a booth. Maybe you'll get into this, but the gourd grows up over that booth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like God gave him an extra layer of protection.
Right.
On top of what he had built.
It seems like the plant that God blessed him with was an extra level and made it cooler somehow.
Mm-hmm.
The one person I was listening to talk about Jonah chapter 4, they gave the idea that what if Jonah would have been using that time to disciple the Ninevites instead of sitting there sulking? And how that could have impacted history. Maybe the revival would have lasted more than one generation. Like, it doesn't seem the revival here stuck to the Ninevites. It seems like they were soon back to their old ways. But what if Jonah would have been discipling them and teaching them how to walk with the Lord? I was like, oh, that is an interesting thought. Like, maybe John chapter 4, the Samaritan woman at the well, maybe there wouldn't have been any Samaritans. Maybe the Ninevites would have been faithful to God for many generations and changed history. It's an interesting thought. But he wasn't. He didn't water and, disciple anybody. He was sitting outside the city to see what would happen. Which leads us into the next section, the section of the forbearing, forgiving God. And this last part of chapter 4, I say, is God trying to reach the hard heart of his servant.
The most difficult person out of it all was the prophet.
Yep.
Not the king of Nineveh.
Nope. Not the sailors. Not the Ninevites. But the man that God had picked to do this assignment. And I've divided the last section of the forgiving, forbearing God into the three sections. And it follows nicely with the prepareds. God prepared, and God prepared. There's three things here that I think it's worthwhile thinking through and talking about. The first one is the plan. And this is a great thing. This is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Jonah gets excited. So he does have emotion. The city of Nineveh can repent. He doesn't get excited about that. He doesn't get happy about that. But he gets a plant that makes his life easier. And this gets him excited. This makes him happy. And that's not all bad. That's okay. But I had to wonder, what are the things that excite me? What are the things that you get excited about? It was a plant. Hello?
Yeah, I mean, it showed up. He didn't plant it.
No.
It showed up quickly.
Yeah.
So it was a supernatural plant.
Unless they have those plants over there, I'm not sure.
I mean, I've never seen one like that.
But he gets excited about it. His emotions are there and he's wrapped up in it. And now I wonder, when you're talking to your friend, after church and you talk about the sermon, and then you start talking about the game, And then is that what makes you light up and you like start using huge hand motions and, just your radiance, it all changes. And it's like, what just happened there?
Yeah.
You can see what's on your heart. And you can see what,
That's a little too convicting. You better keep moving here.
yeah, I know. It's not just you. But what are the things I get excited about?
Sure.
It's a good question to think about with God's good gift. I also think about with giving gifts. Like when I give gifts to my children, I want them to like the gift, but I don't want them to like it so much that they forget the giver. And I think that's the way God feels. Very similar. Like, yes, enjoy the gift, enjoy the good things that we get from God because we have lots. We have many things, but let's not get all caught up in the gift and forget the giver. And I had to wonder if that's where Jonah was going with this a little bit. Like the plant, oh, yes, makes my life so much easier. And it makes more sense if you think about him coming out of the stomach acid in the fish, where he had super soft skin, and sitting in the sun would have been painful, like we're hurt. So this plant was a real blessing. And yeah, thank God, praise him for it, and enjoy it. Like I think that's what we can do with God's good gifts. But it doesn't stay because God prepared a worm. Killed the plant, or the plant withers and dries up. And there I had to think about, it doesn't take much living on earth to realize that good things get taken away. Some people say, oh, no good thing lasts forever kind of thing.
Right.
And yeah, we recognize the reality of that. There's, God takes things away at times. I like Job's response a little bit better than Jonah's. Job said, "The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord."
Yeah.
And then, that's the second prepared. I see it as God giving a good gift, then God takes the gift away.
But all this time, he's trying to get Jonah's attention.
He is.
Wait, hello, wake up.
Right. This is God trying to reach the hard heart of his missionary, his prophet. This leads us to the last prepared, where God prepared an east wind. Don't forget about losing the plant, though, because that comes up later when God talks to Jonah. But now, think about the east wind as when God sends difficulty, or God makes life hard. He prepared a good thing. He prepared the good being taken away. And now he prepares or sent a hard time, sent suffering. Like, how does that fit with your view of who God is?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, does every time something hard that happens, is God trying to get our attention?
I don't think always is it sent from God.
Always and never, not a good way to start that sentence.
Right.
But sometimes he is, but not every time.
Right.
Would that be fair?
And sometimes hard times come from other people's choices.
Right.
Or my bad choices. But here, it wasn't Jonah's choices that brought this on. And it wasn't like some places in the Bible it talks about how God allowed this. But here it says God prepared it.
Well, it was kind of his choice. He could have been in the city discipling the new believers.
True.
And he wouldn't have had to be out in the hot wind, right?
Right. And it also brings up the question of how does this fit with your view of who God is? By preparing a hard space, preparing a hard time. Does this does take your understanding of who God is to a deeper level for some people because, yeah, no, God would never, well, it does seem like he does do that. And yeah, what can you say? It is hard. It is hard times. In verse 9, God asks Jonah, is it right for you to be angry about the plant? Like he brings up the plant
So
after
first
the
it
wind.
was the city, and now it's the plant.
Right. Well, in verse 4, it just says, is it right for you to be so angry?
Okay.
And he doesn't answer it. But then again, at verse 8, it's better for me to be dead. This is after the wind. But then God says, is it right for you to be so angry about the plant? Like, I think he's pinning it on what Jonah's mad about because he lost the plant. And it's not like he was mad about the east wind. He was mad about the plant. And I had to think about how many times the hard times that we go through reveal what's already there. And I think that's what's going on here. And God is
Back up a little
point
bit.
at it.
What do you mean what's already there?
It's not
So-
like the hard times make you this or that, but the hard times expand or reveal what's in place already.
So it's like a testing that reveals. So what would you say this is revealing about Jonah?
He was mad about the plant.
But is there nothing deeper?
Well, I thought it was interesting. It wasn't about the wind. It was still about the plant. It's like Jonah was mad at God about this plant. Like he lost his plant. What's up with this? And God pokes his finger on it. And sometimes when we go through difficult times, it brings up the things that are there before. I remember when I was teaching school, we had this conversation about COVID. Like it doesn't seem like COVID revealed new things or but it brought out the feelings that were there. And it's similar. And I think that's what's going on here. When Jonah's sitting there in that hot east wind, and then it comes out how upset he is about the plant. And, hard times kind of do reveal what's inside and what those things come up. Which, yeah, that's not bad necessarily, but we should deal with it. And like here, it would be nice for Jonah to deal with that.
Yeah. Is the plant an allegory or God's allegory of Nineveh? So, did God raise up Nineveh and then didn't destroy them? And the plant, he raised up the plant and does destroy it?
Is it an allegory of Nineveh?
Yeah, like
Well,
is he trying to
I wouldn't say
play with
that.
allegory?
Well, I think he's trying to show Jonah in this little interaction here.
He's inconsistency, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why I think the book ends with a question because, look, here's this big city. And I have much more feeling for this city than you do for that plant. Am I such a bad guy to reverse, like not destroy them? And then here you are getting all upset about this plant. Which is what I think God is trying to get through Jonah's head. We're not sure if he gets it or not. But that's how he ends the chapter in verses 10 and 11. Like trying to make that connection between this plant, which you care so much about and have so many feelings for, and me not destroying the city of Nineveh, who had 120,000 people who didn't know the right hand from the left, and many cattle. Which I want to think about that 120,000 people who didn't know the right hand from the left. Like, what is that saying? I've heard of two views here. The one is the morality. Like, if you don't know your right from your left, you don't know good or evil, what's right and what's wrong.
Okay.
That was one opinion I read somewhere. And then the other idea is that 120,000 people who don't know the right and left. I mean, if you think about it, who doesn't know the right and left?
2-year-old.
Yeah, children.
Yeah.
So that gives us, like, what if God is saying there's 120,000 innocent people? Young, innocent people. That would make this a much bigger city. And I'm not sure. I mean,
We don't
either
know.
way, it makes a good point.
Right.
But it was just, it was a new thought to me for it to be innocent people, maybe children, which then the city would be what? Maybe 3 times that number? 3 or 4 times bigger. So in other words, it's a lot of people and there's a lot of animals there. And then, bam, the book is over. The book ends with this. I think it's a good picture of God being forgiving and forbearing, working with this hard-hearted prophet Jonah. At the beginning of the chapter, Jonah accuses God of being gracious, merciful, full of loving kindness. And then the rest of the chapter is God treating Jonah like that. Who among us would have been so patient with a guy like Jonah? It's like, you got to be kidding me. God must have been like, again. Next week, I hope we can look at that last phrase a little more and talk about it a little more in depth. But for today, I want us to stop by thinking about this loving, patient, merciful God and what that means to me. Circling back to the beginning there, have you been forgiven a little or a lot? And if you and I view our forgiveness as a little thing, then we're going to love little. We're going to show the tendencies that Jonah showed here. But when we can see our forgiveness for what it is, it's a big deal. It's a lot. We've all been forgiven a lot, even if you're not a huge sinner. Our forgiveness is a lot, and we're grateful to God for that, and we want others to experience it. That's powerful.
Right. And probably the hardest thing for Jonah was extending that kind of forgiveness to the people he least wanted it to go to.
Exactly. And we all have our Ninevites.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. There's a lot of application that we could get into with this.
And that's what I hope to do with our next
What we want
lesson.
to do with the next one, right? But there was a lot of places I wanted to go here, but I want to hold off on that so we have something to talk about the next time. But Jonah is one of those books that is short, but you can keep mining it out.
Oh, yeah.
And pouring things out.
We haven't exhausted it.
No,
There's a lot more here, and it's interesting to hear the many directions people take it.
Well, thank you, Arlen, for going through Jonah chapter 4 with us. That, like I said, there's a lot of things that we could learn from that. And think about it. Have you been forgiven a lot? Or do you think of it as you're a pretty good person and you don't need to be forgiven? Thank you for joining us as we looked at Jonah chapter 4. Come back and join us the next time as we continue our study in the book of Jonah.